Inflation was supposed to fall. Growth was supposed to recover. Central banks were supposed to have this under control. Instead, the IMF has just cut its global growth forecast again. And the word economists are using privately, but nobody wants to say out loud, is stagflation. This is AxisShift. Your mortgage, your grocery bill, your job security, all connected to a problem that central banks have no good answer for. And before this video ends, you'll understand why. Most economic problems have a solution. Inflation too high, raise interest rates. Growth too slow, cut interest rates. Stagflation is different. Because stagflation means both problems arrive simultaneously. High inflation, stagnant growth. Think of it this way. Central banks have two doors. One says inflation. One says recession. Every time they open one, they walk closer to the other. Raise rates to fight inflation, and you choke growth further. Cut rates to stimulate growth, and inflation accelerates. The central bank is trapped between two doors, and the world has only experienced this once before at scale. In the 1970s, the Arab oil embargo sent energy prices soaring. Growth collapsed. Unemployment surged, and inflation refused to fall. It took nearly a decade to resolve. It required interest rates so high that the Federal Reserve Chairman Paul Volcker deliberately triggered a recession to break inflation's grip. The cure was nearly as painful as the disease. That is what stagflation actually means. Not just high prices, not just slow growth. A trap. And in 2026, the trap is forming again. The Strait of Hormuz closure sent oil prices surging toward $90 a barrel. The IMF simultaneously cut its global growth forecast to 3% and revised its inflation forecast upward. In its worst-case scenario, growth falls to 2%. Inflation exceeds 6%, and a number of economies fall into outright recession. But here is what makes 2026 different from 2022. In 2022, the energy shock was temporary. Prices eventually fell. Supply chains eventually recovered. In 2026, the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. The war shows no sign of ending. The energy shock of 2026 is not passing through the economy. It is embedding into it. And that changes everything. Here is what makes this particularly dangerous. Central banks spent the last 3 years convincing the world inflation would return to normal, that people trusted prices would eventually return to normal. That trust is now being tested. Because once everyone believes prices will keep rising, they stop waiting. Workers ask for bigger pay rises before costs arrive. Businesses raise prices before costs arrive. Inflation stops being a problem. It becomes a habit. Economists have a name for this. Inflation expectations become unanchored. And it is exactly what the IMF is warning about right now. So what does this mean for you? The playbook investors relied on for the last decade assumed inflation would always fall. Stagflation breaks that assumption. In a normal slowdown, bonds rally as central banks cut rates. In stagflation, inflation keeps rates elevated. In a normal recovery, equities rise as growth returns. In stagflation, equities face margin pressure from costs and compression from high rates simultaneously. Energy and real assets historically held value the last time the world faced this combination. Not because they are exciting investments, because they are real things in a world where money is losing its reliability. The 1970s stagflation ended, but not quickly, and not without pain. The modern economy was built assuming central banks could always choose the right door. Stagflation is what happens when both doors lead somewhere worse. And right now, the world is standing in the corridor. Subscribe to AxisShift, because the world is turning and you should know which way.